Welcome to Your Vote Counts, a candidate forum sponsored by Capital Community TV and the League of Women Voters of Marion and Polk Counties. My name is Diana Bodker, and I am a member of the League of Women Voters, a nonpartisan political organization that works to educate ourselves and the public about government issues. We do not support candidates, but provide a forum for them to become better known to our communities. In this program, we will present the candidates for the Oregon House of Representatives District 21. They are alphabetically Brian Clem and Beverly Wright. Our format for this forum is as follows. Each candidate has 3 minutes to give an opening statement outlining his or her top priorities, if elected. Following that, each candidate will be given 1.5 minutes to answer questions that have been prepared by League members on current issues. The candidates were not given the questions ahead of time. At the end, the candidates will have 2 minutes to make a closing statement in which to state the legacy he or she would like to leave if elected to the office. Prior to this, the League tossed a coin for seating and question order, so we will begin with Ms. Wright as candidate A for her opening remarks, followed by Mr. Clem as candidate B.
Hello, my name is Beverly Wright, and I'm running for seat 21 here in Salem, Oregon. And what I'm hoping to run for is to find creative ways to find the proper funding for the senior and disability services and the veterans, because we do have funds there. It's how they're being allocated and what's happening within the said programs which need to be watched and addressed, and expand programs that get more care for elderly people and people with disabilities within their homes. The second would be the schools and how we can make them safer, brighter, cleaner, build new schools, because some of our area in this district, our buildings have simply aged, and it's time to remove them and start over again to expand areas. I guess the third for me would be creative financing, in the sense that I find that there are many people in our area, because we are service rendering district, many people need an opportunity to learn how to work. And I'd like to see programs which I call sweat equity, which would be those who have TANF programs, beginning with young people in high school. You know, don't just wait till they're out of school. Start there and then assist them in learning how to hold a job, how to respond. Donate their time and effort, and in exchange they would get training and an understanding that there are ways to go forward financially. The economy to me is the people themselves, and instead of just handing off benefits, I mean, our taxpayers pay for these TANF programs. They are important, but what's wrong with them putting in hours for hours in exchange to help with what they're receiving? Because we have many people who are paying taxes in full and some who are not quite there yet. So my hope is to develop programs which encourage our actual community. Thank you.
I'm Brian Clem, and I currently represent District 21. I have since I was elected in 2006. From my perspective, it's good when you have somebody who's applying for the job for another time to judge them, not only on what they say they're going to do next time, but on what they've done, because I should have a track record by now. So let me touch on just a couple of items that I would call past successes for our district. When I canvassed door to door the first time I ran, I met a lot of folks who live out in the area just east of the city of Salem, in unincorporated areas, who really felt that the process being used under state law for annexation was abusive and not very respectful of them in particular. I've authored several pieces of legislation that have become law that now enfranchise them, so they have a voice during the voting on annexations, and also, if they do get annexed, help phase in so it's not an immediate burden upon them and they have 3 years before the annexation would take in effect. I've got some other ones in the future that we might get into later, but that was something that was a very direct result of going door to door, talking to thousands of people, and then delivering a result for them based on what I heard at their doorstep. In the center of Salem, coming up on this next session, there is a major issue that affects the livability of the neighborhood, Inglewood neighborhood, in the sort of around the state hospital property, and that is the disposition of the northern portion of the state hospital north of Center Street. neighbors are particularly concerned about what will happen next there, as there's a lot of empty buildings. So I've been working with the local neighborhood association and with both business and civic leaders inside the city to try and make a successful redevelopment of that property that lifts up the neighborhood rather than something that detracts from it or just pours a bunch more traffic onto the streets and isn't something that's actually of any interest to the people who live there. And it takes a while to get enough clout and seniority in the legislature to be able to do these things. Even I, at 8 years, don't have all that I need. So I've teamed up with Senate President Peter Courtney, who also represents his district, to try and achieve a very specific plan of action to make that development successful. There's times when I don't always succeed. I fought very bitterly the closing of the Oregon School for the Blind here in the Bush Park portion of the district. I didn't prevail on that one, so I am not perfect, but I work very hard for the people of this district and pay attention to what's going on in our community, and don't forget that I represent a part of Salem, that I am not just there to think about the big problems of the state, which I do, but I also forget that I don't want to forget that I represent people in these neighborhoods that I call home and have for the last 17 years. I want to thank the League of Women Voters and CCTV. Too often campaigns are decided by campaign commercials and who has more money. This is the way it ought to be done, where Bev and I can sit and talk and you get to listen, and it's not about sound bites and campaign packs and donations. It's just us talking as people about what we would do if elected, and this forum is something that is important to you to have, and I want to thank those who brought it to us.
All right. Ms. Wright, how has your experience prepared you to be a representative?
Well, for me, I was on the Commission of Welfare Reform when the state was developing the program for the Oregon Trail Card, and we reviewed all of the information that came through the legislature for what they wanted and to pass in law and what they were doing, the different programs, and I helped with the different programs that they were being ironed out. I've worked as a businesswoman for many years prior to becoming disabled, but once being disabled, I've actually had to live with the programs that are federal and state, so I know they're praiseworthy and I know their foibles. And I understand that there are some things that with a little adjustment could be fantastic, but between law and making it happen, sometimes things get muddled. And I'm really keen at finding the little muddle point and ironing it out. So.
Mr. Clem.
So repeat the question for me one more time.
How has your experience prepared you to be a representative?
So obviously I have served as a state representative now for several terms, and that helps to go forward. Prior to that, I spent 5 years working for United States Senator Ron Wyden, and then in between my time with Senator Wyden when I ran for the legislature in 2006, I served as a volunteer for the Oregon Student Assistance Commission, which is a state agency that oversees financial aid and scholarships for low-income Oregonians. I would say that more important than all these years of working for congressmen or serving on a commission is actually what I do in my real life, which is run a business. Oregon has a tradition of having citizen legislators. It is far more common now in the legislature to find folks who are retired, who are independently wealthy. I am neither of those things. I worked 15 hours a day for the last week at fixing computers for one of my customers to help them get out of a jam that they had related to a theft on their property. I know what it's like to have to pay people to work and make sure that they're qualified and ready to work. I know what it's like to have to run a business and sometimes let people go, sometimes expand. To me, equally important to the time that I learned how government works and how to get bills passed and how to build relationships, inside the Capitol, is that I'm still a real guy who has to go to work every day like everybody else, pay a mortgage, think about my 7-year-old daughter at McKinley and how we're going to pay for college. And to me, that is equally important to the 20-plus years I've spent following the legislative process.
Mr. Clem, what are the most pressing transportation issues facing Oregon and the most promising approaches to address these?
Well, probably the funding for transportation, partially because the federal government has largely fallen down on the job to reauthorize a highway bill, so that's leaving the state more in a position to have to take on the responsibility of transportation until that gets reauthorized. We last had a package in 2009, so it's been 5 years since we've authorized any kind of new big transportation package. I can tell you personally, the most pressing thing has to do with Salem, and that is we don't have bus service on weekends. And when I drive up and down town and see my constituents walking miles to be able to go to the grocery store, it just breaks my heart. And I know we can do better than that. We have had a few one-time sort of infusions of cash from the state to try and help our transit system, whether it was rebuilding the transit mall or we've been able to get a couple of one-time appropriations to help with our budget, but we are still lacking from other communities of our same size in budgets. Our budgets for transit in this district or in the city are about a third of Eugene, for example, even though it's the same size. And there are state statutes that are causing that problem. So trying to deal with getting people a way to get around when they can't afford an automobile, or we're trying to get people out of their automobiles, is extremely important to me. This next round of transportation funding should include far more dollars in the multimodal, transit-oriented, not just about new roads.
Ms. Wright.
Same question? Well, in the transportation department, what I've known is obviously we have a bottleneck. We have so many people on 60-year-old roads. They're just too small. There's not significantly enough room. And many people really do not want to ride the bus itself. They don't want to. It's rattly, it's uncomfortable, people get injured on them, they're off schedule, and they don't run well, and they're very expensive. It's a $5 thing to ride a bus today, just to go zip, zip back and forth. So the elderly have been going on the TripLink and the different programs and the taxis and the like, but that's a terrible burden for them. We need to figure out a little more personal way to get people around. Bicycles aren't always the answer. And shuttles would be kind of nice. But we have to decide if we're going to do a shuttle for the state of Oregon or private like Chariots. So that's a tough one. There's just too many ins and outs to just say, here's the answer.
Thank you. Ms. Wright, are there any of the ballot measures about which you feel strongly, and why?
Actually, the one that gets me going is the one about marijuana, because I look at that and I go, okay, prohibition isn't working. It hasn't. They've attempted that for 80 years. And just like cigarettes or alcohol, I don't have to smoke, even if it's legal to do so. There has to be a little sovereign responsibility to say, you know what, maybe that's going to be a law, but I would rather have the state have funds from that and have it regulated through alcohol and cigarettes, because we can't get around the elephant in the room on this. I personally would not use it, but that doesn't mean it cannot be legalized and cannot be put to use. And when I've spoken to, well, there was one company out of Portland, they were more concerned that they were going to lose their cornering of the market on medical marijuana than actually opening it up. And in truth, he was afraid that everyone would be growing these plants. People don't grow plants in their homes, and they don't want the hassle or bother. So it's kind of it's got to be dealt with in a responsible way.
Mr. Clem.
Yeah, there's one that actually is probably little known and little discussed, but I think probably has more to do with the future of the state than anything else on the ballot, and that has to do with a program called the Oregon Opportunity Initiative that the state treasurer is requesting the voters approve. And what it would do is create a long-term funding mechanism for the Oregon Opportunity Grant. And the Oregon Opportunity Grant is what people who don't have quite enough money to afford to go to college bridges the gap. So the very low income will get a lot of financial aid from both the Pell Grant and in some cases the Supplemental Educational Opportunity Grants, unsubsidized or subsidized student loans. Then there's this group in the middle who they make not quite enough money to afford college on their own, but also not enough to get all the financial aid. By having something like the Oregon Opportunity Initiative in place, we would expand the dollars available for those kind of middle class students in a way that currently we don't. The lowest of the low income can get the Opportunity Grant. It's the people who really are in this affordability gap with the price of textbooks, the price of college, and not enough financial aid to really help. This would move up into the kind of middle income, the assistance from the state. And being a first generation Clem to go to college, I know that the ability to get some help to go to college is critical to what the rest of your life looks like. And I was a beneficiary of this program at one time. I want to see it delivered to other people. So I would encourage you to vote yes on the Oregon Opportunity Initiative.
Mr. Clem, many articles are written about the negative aspects of education in our state. What do you consider to be the positive components or directions?
This is much easier for me to talk about now that I have a 7-year-old over at McKinley Elementary School. I think that teachers are working really, really hard, even with all the uncertainty they've had for the last several biennia in funding. This was the first time in 4 budget cycles where we were able to actually add back some teachers and start to work on reducing class sizes. That's a trend we need to continue. It is very difficult to imagine learning when you have 30 kids that all need attention from your teacher and there's just one person in the classroom trying to manage that in the first grade, for example, like we've had. So on the positive side, I would say some of the reinvestment we've made, over $1 billion in the last 2 years, into the formula that feeds into the Salem-Keizer School District along with every other school district in the state is good news. I also just want to take a moment to talk about the Farm to School program. That was something I authored originally in 2007. It's now starting to pay dividends in Salem, where we have 8 school gardens and farm to school efforts here that both help reward the kids with better, more nutritious food, but also local farmers are starting to find customers in places that they didn't view as customers before. Truett Brothers Foods in particular was someone who at one time had not been able to sell in Oregon at all because we were such terrible customers and would not do anything other than low bid. Now they're selling all over Oregon, and that's creating jobs in Salem while feeding the kids, like my daughter and her classmates, a better school lunch.
All right. Ms. Wright.
About the schools, I have found that we kind of have a bottleneck. It's time to take down the old buildings, put up some new buildings, hire more teachers, really look at the budget. My daughter's godmother was a teacher for 38 years. And she was in a situation where her principal would say, use your entire budget no matter what, so that next year we can get more. And it's like this buildup. Over the years, we've kind of hit this tipping point that we are unable to actually fund our schools for all of the equipments and products because they're trying to aim for the following budget that's yet to come. And that doesn't help the situation. We need to go into the schools and say, okay, what do you really need? How much paper? I would like to see a mass factory or building put up where we could buy vast quantities of colored papers, pencils, balls, whatever the school needs. And when they need it, just order it off the district shelf and just send it to the school. They need this much paper, get that much paper. Have it pre-done and put it in storage.
Ms. Wright, the population is aging, so how should the government deal with the associated costs, such as health, support services, mental health, and recreation?
Love this question. Well, having used those services and having a mother with Alzheimer's, she's 5th stage, I found that there are too many little places that want to present themselves as if they are retirement home or nursing homes, and their memory care facilities. They're actually private businesses, and they're not resigning themselves to any of the laws that a nursing home, a hospital staff, or special needs place has. They don't have doctors, they don't have CNAs, they don't have anything, but they take $6,000 for a half room. For that same $6,000, we could keep a husband and wife in their own home with full care of a care provider at $2,000 a month for that care provider. That's 6 adults, 3 homes, and 3 people employed. I think that's a better shift of the money. And it's safer that way because my mother's been assaulted and abused in those homes. And the Attorney General told me, without appropriate law that is set right there, they can't stop them from harming my mother. That's not okay.
All right, thank you. Mr. Clem.
So the aging of the baby boomers is a big issue for the financial health of the state, but for the quality of life of folks who are entering retirement age. One problem is most Americans are not saving enough for retirement. So right now we are developing a program where people could kind of like the 529 college savings plans, where they could put away money for their retirement with the state and have it managed by state managers versus Wall Street. And my experience has been the people who lost all their money due to, I forget even the names of these things, but swap defaults, those sort of things. I'm not interested in trying to subject Oregonians to that. So if we can have our own in-house fund where people have a way to put away for their own retirement and not believe that they're going to get swindled at the end by some Wall Street fund manager, that would be a very positive thing. Second, we have to invest more in things like Project Independence. We just in my own home lived through the terminal illness of my mother-in-law. She lived with us the whole time for the last year, eventually passing away from Lou Gehrig's disease recently. I experienced firsthand what it was like to be able to find qualified caregivers. We luckily found some, but it was not easy. So creating the state registry we're working on right now, so when you have somebody sick and you're trying to help them in their own home, you can call and find somebody versus relying on only for-profit companies to be able to deliver those services is a positive. And last, things like the Salem Senior Center. We need to make sure those kind of programs are available throughout the state. They help people have dignity and recreation and stay healthier for longer periods of time into their retirement.
All right, Mr. Clem, your closing remarks.
Well, I've enjoyed this job. It is not always easy to balance being a parent, running a business, and doing this job, but I've enjoyed it, and that's why I've asked you to rehire me again for 2 more years. The thing I'm most worried about is that the quote-unquote economic recovery that we're enjoying is really a stagnant or declining middle class. So my focus is going to be on making sure that we have a healthy economy. I don't think that in Salem we are happy with the whims of the recession's ups and downs, because so many folks work in state government, and it's very scary to realize that if the economy goes down in the tank again, we're looking at more layoffs in this area. So while others believe the economy is recovering, I'm worried that it's recovering in Portland but not anywhere else, and I think it's important that we keep our eye on the ball for economic recovery. And I've got a series of things I've done over the years and will continue to work on in that arena, one called the Buy Oregon Act, another one that would help in Eastern Oregon make them a taxpayer again rather than a user of tax services, called the Frontier Oregon Program. All of those kind of things are aimed at economic development, helping local businesses grow in ways that right now we have for too many years focused on luring out-of-state companies here with tax breaks. They often use the tax breaks and then leave or never come here at all. I would rather focus on the businesses that have been here for a long time, what we can do to assist them in growing, because they're fixed here, they're loyal here, they were born here, they were raised here. The people who own these businesses went to South or North or McKay. We call that economic gardening, and it is a much cheaper and more effective way to grow the economy through supporting these small businesses than taking out-of-state recruitment trips and trying to get somebody to come here instead of Texas. So my particular focus is going to be on economic recovery and making sure that our kids have an education that put them in a position to work and be successful in life. Thank you for your consideration. I would appreciate your vote this November.
Ms. Wright.
Well, for me, what it's going to be is I'm trying to run because I believe in this area needs some help. We need to focus locally to help what we've got. Now, if every community they're in expands out and takes care of their part, we can gain a foothold here in Oregon and fix some things that have gone a little lax. I want a better education system for the children. I really want safer care for the elderly and the disabled. And with my experience in life, people have said, well, with your opinions, Bev, maybe you should run for office. So that's why I'm here. I'm not here to run against Brian. I'm here to run because I really want to do my part. Be it in this office or another office, I'm going to do my part because I've benefited from the taxpayers, and I have benefited from the state of Oregon and the federal government even. And I have no right to complain about the way things are if I'm not willing to stand up and do some. I have to do my part. So what I would like to do is, yes, ask you to vote for me, but I want you to vote for me because you know that I'm going to take from my experiences, the same experience other people have had, and I'm not going to stop. I'd love to see equity come from our people to clean up our area, clean up Salem itself, and expand out from there and develop programs that will build something even larger, because many things start here in Oregon, like the EBT card. So, thanks.
That is all the time we have. You have been watching Your Vote Counts, a candidate forum for Oregon House of Representatives District 21. Thank you to our candidates for participating today. We hope you will watch our other candidate forums. Please see the CCTV website for times and dates. These forums are a public service to voters to become more acquainted with candidates who hope to lead our city, county, and state government in the coming years. Ballots will be mailed beginning October the 15th and must be received by the County Elections Department no later than November the 4th. We urge you to exercise your right to vote. This is Diana Bodker from the League of Women Voters and your partner, CCTV. Thank you for watching Your Vote Counts.